Live from the top of the beautiful towers at Merle Hay Mall, all 6 stories of it, it's Faith Works Live with host Michael Damastis.
And I'm so glad that you're joining us today. It's Wednesday. It's a great day. Man, this weather, we just need to kind of stop the weather patterns on this one. Just pause and stay here all the way through December 31st. I love this weather. It's amazing. I think it's awesome.
Yep, we're now jinxed. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah. Snow, June 1st. Well, no, I love this. It's fantastic, and I just love being outside, love driving around with my windows down. And but, hey, I want to talk to you as we kind of lead into the more heavier stuff. I want to talk to you about something not as heavy, and but I know people that this is going to be a deal with. So if this is an issue, so be it. But here's the thing. I have to ask this question. How can you possibly be a vegan? How can anybody be a vegan? Okay, so there was an individual on Facebook and just, in my friends list was kind of, what everybody does on Facebook, takes pictures of their food. And he was taking a picture of his vegan omelet with cheese. And now none of the egg in the omelet was real, and nor was the cheese. It was all made from, get this, algae substance. So it's more natural to suck on algae than eat eggs and cheese? What have we come to? That is so disgustingly gross. If you're a vegan and you do that, you need therapy. That's just wrong. Everything about that is wrong. I just don't understand that. I'm sorry. I apologize for offending any vegans that might be hearing this, but I don't get it. I really just don't get it.
I think we eat some pretty weird stuff all around, really. I mean,
well, I would say, yeah.
Let's not talk about the English diet. What is that? Haggis?
No, that's Scottish. That's not
Scottish.
English.
Whatever.
Yeah, well,
same thing.
Mushy peas with fish and chips. There you go. That's not odd at all. Well, it's not like you just can't have a pea. Let's squish them up really bad, like, baby food consistency, and then feed it to you. But, hey, not making fun of British people, because we love British people. That's why we have Ian on every Wednesday. And but here's the thing. Being a vegan, I don't get it. And I've never been able to understand. I won't understand sucking on algae and making myself feel better, thinking that, hey, I'm eating a healthy egg substance that's...
I don't think it's about health for most vegans. It's not only about health. It's a moral issue. I mean, I disagree personally, but I have good friends who are vegans, and I respect them.
If you are a Christian and you are a vegan, please, I mean it. I need to know why. So give me a call, 515-727-5842. Call or text. Give me your position on this issue. Is it better to suck on algae and make myself feel better that I'm doing that than it is to have an egg for breakfast?
I do know for a fact that vegan-ish diet is pretty popular in the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Well, that explains so much. Anyways, I just I don't get it. I really don't understand it, and I don't know that I ever would. So I know that there's like kinds of sushi that you can have wrapped in seaweed. I can't say I've never had seaweed. Seaweed's an algae, isn't it? Because when I think of algae,
some is.
I think of like a pond with a slime on top of it, and what's the vegan walking by going, that looks
as opposed
good.
To eating mushrooms, I mean, mushrooms are pretty much the same thing.
All right, that's different though. That's different. At least a mushroom you can hunt, but I don't get it. We're gonna move on because when you think vegan, I don't know about you, but I always think Kathy Griffin, and so vegan and Kathy Griffin, the two go together like I don't know. Anyways,
things that don't go together.
Exactly. So what about this? You've seen it. We all have seen it probably. Kathy Griffin came out with this insane idea thinking, hey, it'll be fun. Let's put like a whole bunch of fake blood on this mask or this, head object that looks like Donald Trump. And let's hold it up in an image, kind of, like the Al-Qaeda terrorist would do. And, we're holding, this is art. I had somebody, no joke, today I saw a person on Facebook arguing that, hey, you might not like it, you might not agree with it, but art is art, and it's up to the individual to determine whether it's got worth or value. And so I'm like, really?
Artistic value in terms of value or something, but saying it's art doesn't somehow mean you're excused from all moral or political considerations.
Right.
You can't just go, it's art, and therefore nothing else matters, and nothing can be judged.
There's got to be, I'm assuming that there is some kind of a standard definition of what art is,
I think 10,000 pages have been written not agreeing on that, Mike.
I'm sure you're probably right. But, can't we agree that that's not art? I mean, couldn't we really agree on that simple subject?
I just think it's kind of irrelevant whether it is or not, because the issues with it are not to do with whether it's art or not. If it was painted as a painting and put up in a gallery, it would still have really the same issues.
Well, that's true.
I mean,
that's a true point. So let's look at that for just a second, because she did this. I don't think she wanted to hearken this image as in what we've seen. All of us have seen an image of, an ISIS member or an Al-Qaeda member holding the head that's been decapitated of some poor soul that they've murdered.
Most likely a Christian.
Most likely, you're right. But what would possess a person to think that this is a good idea? This will be fun. I can't put myself in those shoes.
People just lose their temper, basically, and it's kind of a sustained boil. People who are angry about the state of the nation and the world. Sometimes they allow their anger to completely override all other considerations.
Is that what Kathy Griffin did? Is it just an act of anger, an act of malice, an act of hostility, an act of rage? What was it?
I think it's a political statement, but I think it was driven by
all
anger.
of those things.
Yes. I mean, and
unbridled angst.
All of us have felt angry, I suspect, at things about the state of the nation or the world at different times.
Sure.
But that doesn't, again,
and
we have to stop and think.
And I have seen images, by the way, floating around on Facebook from others that have showing like Obama in effigy in a noose, and whatnot. So it's not like we were talking off air.
It's not like this has never happened before.
Exactly.
No,
this isn't a new thing. I will say, it is pretty gory. I mean, the image.
It's a particularly gory example. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's. I guess the thing about it that's, and then there's, we were talking about this too, and I don't want to go down the road of are they using him or not using him, whatever, but, the idea that Barron Trump, the 11-year-old son of Donald Trump, had actually purportedly seen the image on TV and wondered did that happen? Did they do that to my dad? And so that's, that the idea of that is a horrible idea, And
I think that, I think what's so often missing, and this it's something we all have to remember, is that the people we see as our ideological enemies are still human beings.
Exactly.
And it's so easy to forget that.
Exactly.
I mean, and as Christians, they're human beings made in the image of God.
Right.
And that doesn't mean they're not wrong.
Right.
It doesn't mean saying that about someone doesn't mean you agree with their policies. It doesn't even mean you think the country would be better if they'd never come within 100 miles of elected office. You can say that, but you still have to remember that they are a human being.
So do you think Kathy Griffin is nuts? I mean, did she just go way over? Because that's what she said in her apology. Hey, I'm a comedian, and I kind of, I stepped over the line. I get it. Us comedians, we do that sometimes. And, so I'm sorry. It was wrong. I took it down. Is that a real apology? Because it kind of sounded pretty wimpy as an apology, frankly. I didn't think that she really apologized. So I don't know. Here's the deal. Kathy Griffin, we can all be unanimous on this, wanted attention. And she got it. She got a lot of attention. She's in a news cycle. And she's not going to be with CNN anymore. And we're seeing that some of her shows on her tour are being canceled. There was, one for sure. And I'm sure there will be others.
I think it was.
Yeah, others to follow. Anyway, she's... there are repercussions to silly acts like this. Like Ian said, he brought up a good point. This is off air, but he said this before the show. I don't think we're really needing to worry about Kathy Griffin actually attempting to take the life of our president. But the stunt that she pulled was silly. It was stupid. It was ridiculous. It was grotesque. It was wrong.
Well, and it doesn't help.
Nothing.
There are ways of disagreeing with people. There are ways of disagreeing with people really strongly that still gives people something to engage with.
Right.
We can actually have a debate, or you can make a protest that makes a point. But holding up mock decapitated heads of people it is utterly unproductive. All it does is make things worse.
I would agree with that. And, you can't mistake, honestly, the imagery, like I said, that it really harkens us to the ISIS warrior, to the Al-Qaeda, militant guerrilla fighter that's holding the decapitated head of some poor soul that they've murdered. And so we see that, we look at that, and it's horrible. So we're going to come back from break in just a little bit, and we're going to jump kind of right into the deep end of talking about Islam. Last time we talked about this, the weather said, no, you're not. And we got through one segment, and then we got knocked off the air. But that's not happening today because it's a beautiful, sunny, just beautiful day. The weather's great, so we're excited about that. And we're going to talk about the difference between Muhammad and Jesus. And we're going to look at the historical underpinnings of Islam when we come back. I want to hear from you, by the way, on any of these topics. Vegans, Kathy Griffin, or Islam. 515-727-5842.
From Sailor Bear Lake to Southeast Polk, you know where to find us, right here on 99.3 The Truth, KTIA. Now you can join us by calling 515-727-KTIA.
And I'm your host, Michael Damastis, and you are listening to an awesome edition, might I say, of FaithWorks Live. Today is Wednesday, and joining me in the studio is Ian Bars, and we have been talking all things vegan. Of course, that's related specifically to Kathy Griffin and her antics recently. And we've also found out off the air that droids are really a substandard phone. iPhones rule the day. I saw a meme somebody had put up on Facebook of these guys like on the big Harleys, and they're all tattooed and look tough and leather and chains, and it says droid users, and then underneath with the men and all the colorful rompers it said iPhone users. I about died, but that's definitely not an accurate portrayal. My Uncle Scott is watching live on Facebook, and he just said droids are evil. Amen, brother. I agree with you. So we're talking today. We want to talk Islam, and we have meandered our way to this topic. And here's the thing, okay? Because you hear it said, it's posited by a lot of people out there, journalists and secularists alike, especially the liberal left and libertarians, might I add. Some would say that Islam is a religion of peace. Is that a good British accent? It's a religion of peace, I say.
It's a British accent.
Yeah, that sounds terrible. Islam is a religion of peace. Is it? Is Islam? That's just two words right there that are hard to say. Is Islam a religion of peace? Do you believe it is? I want to know what you think is the answer to that question. Call us or text us 515-727-5842. Now, here's the thing. If somebody says that Islam is a religion of peace, we just have to go and check out the track record of the religion of Islam. We have 1,400 years that span a lot of time to be able to look at whether or not Islam actually has been historically a religion of peace. Because would you agree with this statement? Because Ian and I, when we're going to get into this, we don't agree necessarily on all of this topic. So I'm interested to jump into it. But would you agree with this? Past behavior is, in general, a good determinant of present behavior.
I mean, as a general observation, yes. I think it is. What am I trying to say? There are things you can say about Islam as a religion. I do think it is also important to remember that in a group of 2 billion people, you're going to have a lot of variety. So the fact that Islam may be this or that doesn't mean that there aren't many Muslims who aren't this or that. I mean, the same thing is true of Christians, of course.
Well, would you say, because here's the thing. I mean, this is kind of what I want to do as we start looking at this topic. And I want to hear from you, by the way. I mean, feel free, Facebook, feel free, call or text 515-727-5842. We're talking about Islam and whether or not it's a religion of peace, its history. Let's do this. Let's look at the comparison between we'd say the founder of Christianity, Jesus, and the founder of Islam, Muhammad. And let's kind of compare these two figures to see how they kind of measure up through history. First, we would say this. And by the way, I would say this very clearly and unequivocally at the beginning, that when somebody says, well, we all worship the same God, that's so insanely stupid. It's not even funny.
It's insulting to Christians and Muslims, to be honest.
Exactly, it is.
There's this whole sort of, you can only say that all religions lead to the same place by actually saying that half the things you say you believe, you don't really believe or don't matter.
Or God is schizophrenic.
Yes.
He tells a group over here, hey, this is how I want you to know me, and over here, this is how I want you to know me.
Something completely the opposite.
It doesn't make any sense. So, yes. Well, and good point. On Facebook, my Uncle Scott said, one is dead, one is not. Really, really good point. But let's kind of work through this, okay? How about this? Jesus never killed anybody. Muhammad killed an estimated 3,000 people. Himself.
I mean, I think you can, if you look at the history of Islam and Christianity, there's been a lot of violence in the history of both. But if you look at how they started, Islam in its birth, its genesis, was as a warrior religion, as it were. It's spread by warfare in its first 500 years. It basically spread by continuous warfare from the Middle East outwards.
Right.
Christianity spread throughout the Roman Empire. Its first 300 years as a sort of underground, sometimes persecuted, Christianity didn't gain formal political power of any kind for 300 years.
At a minimum, I would agree with you, absolutely.
Of its, and I mean later, once the emperors became Christian and the kings of medieval Europe became Christian, you had sort of church and state linked together, and you had violence connected with that, absolutely. And I mean, Christians have done some terrible things in the past, but it's not sort of rooted in the DNA of Christianity, in the origin story, in the same way that Islam is. Islam was born as Muhammad united the tribes, and they set out to conquer the world, basically.
Exactly. Well, Jesus never never led an army.
Exactly.
Muhammad led armies. He fought in 66 battles. 27 of them were led by him personally. Jesus never owned slaves. Muhammad took a fifth of slaves in every battle that they won. And Jesus never tortured anybody. Muhammad was an artist, we could say, in the Kathy Griffin way of torturing people. Jesus did not lie. This is big. Muhammad permitted lying to advance Islam. It's called taqiyya, or sacred lying, or holy deceit. For example, one could say that he isn't a Muslim so that he could be elected. Maybe. I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know. Jesus never forced anyone to follow him. Muhammad established apostasy laws, and even today, if you convert away from Islam, you will be killed if you happen to live in a place like Saudi Arabia or Iran. So, Jesus forgave insults. Have you tried to insult Muhammad in a public sphere recently?
I'm not too eager to do it.
Oh, I don't know anybody that is. So, that's pretty big. There are some blatant differences, as you said, at the genesis, at the beginnings of these religions, that they were birthed in entirely different ways. Islam and Christianity are not similar or alike. And we're going to continue talking about this when we come back from break. I want to know your thoughts. Is Islam a religion of peace?
It's Mikey, he's better than TV. We're listening to Mikey, and best of all, it's free.
And that's my mother-in-law from Kewanee, Illinois, writing the best jingle there is for my show. I thank her for doing that. She is fantastic. And you're listening to Faith Works Live. My name is Mike Damastis. I am your host, and it's a wonderful Wednesday outside. We're sitting on top of the Tower of Truth here at Merle Hay Mall along the beautiful, scenic, romantic, might I add, Merle Hay Road. And I have to say that, you know, if you ever want to just take a beautiful drive with your loved one, your spouse, just come on to Merle Hay Road. What a beautiful place. So many scenic overlooks, and it's just, man, it's just like getting right into the middle of nature. You know, the cracks in the sidewalks and and the asphalt and the little weeds that grow up. I mean, you can stop and admire that for hours. It's such a beautiful, beautiful drive. Well, we're talking about Islam, and we've been talking about the origins, the inception of this religion, and the fact is that we have an issue in our country because the debate has been about allowing Syrian refugees to come into our country, and that was a big deal. Should we do that? I mean, we don't know who they are, and boy, they're Muslim, and they're going to kill us if they come, and so that's been out there, and of course the numbers are quite small, and we've all seen some of the pictures. And here's the problem, because I know what side on this that you're on. You think that this issue is really is non sequitur right? But you think that it's a non-issue regardless, because you don't believe that allowing a small percentage, like what is it, 80,000?
Well, I mean, the highest number I saw being debated for the U.S. at any point was like 200,000 over the next decade.
Okay. So 200,000 over 10 years, and that's, what's that, 20,000 a year or something. So that's not a ton. But it's 20,000 people that, we would want to, in essence, make sure we know who's coming in. I mean, you would agree with that, right? I mean, vetting
Absolutely.
them stringently.
And they are. I mean, I'm not saying that process is flawless, because it's very hard when you're dealing with a country in the middle of utter chaos.
Right.
But I mean, this idea that we just someone walks up to a U.S. agent in a refugee camp and says, I want to go to the States, and the next thing you know, they're in Chicago. I mean, the vetting process for refugees is about the strictest process there is out of all ways of getting into the U.S.
Okay.
I mean, it's an extensive process. That's why, not one of the reasons why not that many people have got in. It's generally over a year of vetting by multiple agencies before they approve refugee status from anyone from a war zone.
Did you know that there was a recent article released by New York Times that they quietly, the Donald Trump administration had upped the number of immigrants allowed into our nation annually?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I can't remember what the number was, but it almost doubled the number. When Donald Trump was trying to say he was going to reduce the number by, half, it actually increased by twice. So, and that was done very quietly. And I would just challenge you to Google immigration numbers quietly, change. There's a really lengthy New York Times article that I read about this, and it just happened, over the last few weeks, like the last 3 weeks that this occurred. And so that's an odd thing, by the way. You kind of get two talking points. You got the same administration saying one thing and doing another, and that's a challenge because we just got done with that, didn't we? Didn't we get done with that? I mean, we had 8 years of that, so that's frustrating. But my issue is, and I think that this is where I'm at on this with the immigrants that are coming into America, is that I believe that it's really important that we do have that strict vetting process. And for us to think that the beginnings of Islam are not an impact upon those that come into this country is, I think, at best, naive.
What do you mean by the inception of Islam? Do you mean
because I would? This is the thing. I was asking people to call in or text in. I still want to know if you believe that Islam is a religion of peace, because I do not believe it is.
Right, but this is what frustrates me so much about a lot of the discussion about Muslim immigration to the U.S. I hear people talking about, we could stop terrorism attacks in America if we stopped Muslim immigration. There are 3.3 million Muslims in the United States.
Correct.
There are substantial Muslim minorities in every major Western nation, just about, much higher as a percentage in a lot of European nations.
Now,
there's 3.3 million people here. Many of those are second, third, fourth, fifth generation. They've been here for 40 years, 50 years plus. Most of them are citizens. They're not going anywhere, not unless you think rounding up people and stripping them of their citizenship and deporting them is a good idea.
And by the way, on that,
which I have heard people suggesting.
Yes,
and
I have
if you're
too.
not terrified by that, then I don't know what's wrong with you.
So here's a question, though. What about this? What about the individual that's here illegally? What do you think about deporting illegal immigrants?
I certainly think a country has the right to have an immigration system. I don't think countries have a moral obligation, like some of my libertarian friends do, to have completely open borders. I don't think there's anything wrong with having border controls and deciding who comes into your country.
So, we all are aware, I mean, your home country just received one of a devastating event that occurred during the Ariana Grande concert. And the bombing took place. ISIS took responsibility for that. They targeted children. These are wicked, vile people. These are just disgusting people that would do these horrific acts like this, knowingly targeting young kids. The youngest, by the way, was 8 years old. That just it infuriates me when I really start to think about that. But did you see Katy Perry's response? About how we all just need to love more and no borders, hashtag no borders, no walls. And I'm like, this is coming from a gal with guys on security duty. She lives in a compound and, she's got men with machine guns.
It's very easy for people who can afford any protection they want to say things like that.
It's
I agree.
Ridiculous.
But at the same time, the man who did that attack was not an immigrant. He was born in Britain.
No,
and that's actually far more overall of the terrorist attacks in the last 20 years have come from people who are permanent residents or citizens of the countries they're in. It's not largely.
And these people are becoming radicalized.
They're being radicalized here. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was second generation. His parents came from Libya 30 years ago or more.
Right.
He was raised in Britain, and this is the pattern. This is the funny thing. It's not the people who come from very devout families and have been, devout, observant Muslims their whole lives who become the terrorists. 3 years ago, this guy's reputation, he drank, he did drugs, he was, quote, not a good Muslim at all. And then he became radicalized. And that's actually a far more common pattern than the idea that someone is coming in as a refugee or an immigrant from Syria or Libya or something else and coming in to commit terrorism, living in the US or the UK or wherever for a few months or a year and then committing a terrorist attack.
So Jessica on Facebook said that there is no longer assimilation, and that's one of the biggest problems. They don't embrace American culture. In fact, they seem to hate it. Do you think that that's an overgeneralization? Is that painting with too broad of a brush?
I don't know. I think I'd put it differently. I think that the West, on the whole, has lost confidence in its own culture, and I think that's part of the issue. In the sense, we don't encourage assimilation.
Well,
I think we need to, but it's also, I mean, the guy, I've forgotten his name now, the Manchester bomber. He was quite thoroughly assimilated into Manchester youth culture. And like I said, and also the problem is different in different places. That's also true. The issue with Muslim communities is not the same in France, in the UK, and the US. There are different factors that play into it. It's not it's not Islam and the West.
Right.
Yeah. That's oversimplistic.
As you're listening out there, 515-727-5842, I want to hear from you. Call or text us on this issue. And you're sitting in a restaurant and you got a family sitting across from you, and she's maybe got a head covering, and you just see them, and do you feel like you have suspicions, or you wonder, and I mean, is that racist to even think that way and feel that way? Because I think a lot of people have some of those feelings that come up inside of them, and is that racism, or is that just media exploitation of this issue? I wonder what you think.
I think it's natural, but that doesn't mean it's actually a valid risk, especially if it's a family.
Correct.
It makes no difference if you're in Pleasant Hill or Pleasantville. We have you covered. So give us a call at 515-727-KTIA.
Did you know that a leaky faucet can actually, if left unrepaired, waste more than 3,000 gallons of water a year? Have you ever heard of a silent toilet leak? Silent toilet leaks occur when water doesn't appear to be running but is being released. Silent toilet leaks can waste thousands of gallons of water every single year. Nathan Shanks, the owner of Baldwin Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing, sees problems like this every single day. He can quickly, efficiently, and affordably help you resolve any of your plumbing issues. No problem is too small, and no challenge is too large. Call Baldwin Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing today, 515-371-4036. That's 515-371-4036. So today in studio, I'm Mike Damastis, and this is FaithWorks Live, and I'm speaking with one of my favorite Wednesday guests, Ian Bars, and we've been talking about Islam and its impact upon issues like immigration and even just on the culture in general. And one of the main issues is that when you have, like, say, quote unquote, a Muslim community, and there's places in Michigan maybe that we could kind of point to and say, like Dearborn and other places where there is a large gathering, a community of like-minded Muslims who really have taken over that area in a sense. And I hate using those terms because those terms sound like I'm painting a picture. They've taken over, and so, but many would say that's not accurate enough. Many would say that it's a threat, and that they are not only not assimilated, but their communal gathering like that they have in Dearborn is actually very dangerous to our democratic system because they want to impose Sharia law and on our land. Now you get to places like England, Manchester being one of them. You start looking at the mayors of the cities in England, Manchester being one of them, London and others. Multiple of cities have now elected Muslim mayors, and so many are scared that they are working to literally take over and change the culture of that country that they're a part of. Do you see that as a threat? Do you think that's empty, silly talk?
I don't believe that Sadiq Khan is some kind of secret jihadi. No, I don't. I mean, it would require him to be playing some ridiculously long, deep game that I don't see any reason to believe. He's a highly westernized, highly liberal, moderate Muslim. I don't know much about his personal faith, but on outward appearance, he's very, very within the circle of sort of politically correct establishment thought in Britain. And I don't believe that he's some kind of Manchurian candidate. I mean, I'm not saying that he would move more towards a more conservative or small o orthodox Muslim view if he thought that would be politically advantageous. He maybe would, but I mean, I don't see this sort of grand Muslim plot, to be honest. Does that mean that I have no concerns with Muslim communities in the West? Not at all. And it depends where. Once again, I mean, I said that the situations are different in different countries. France and Germany have very different problems to Britain and again from the US. There are parts of the French cities where very large areas are almost entirely Muslim. Mm-hmm. And there's been just very much a failure to assimilate from what I've heard from people in France and mm-hmm. reading sources from within France. And you've just got a real social community divide. In a way that isn't true as much in Britain. And I absolutely think that the West needs to get its own confidence back, as it were. And have more confidence in its own culture and insist that there are some basic ground rules. If you want to live in this country, these are our laws and you have to follow them. And these are our basic kind of cultural expectations. And there are some things we're not going to make exceptions to these, no matter, even if this community is 90% any community,
right.
These are our laws. But the idea that 1% of America are going to impose Sharia law on America in the next 50, 100, 200 years, just really? But 1%?
Do you believe that there are communities where that is a threat?
Honestly, I don't know enough. I think it's plausible. It's plausible.
And I think that some people see this as this whole discussion as it's inflammatory, and it's wrong. And I think we received a text, accusing us of just even having this discussion. And we're just talking, for one. I just want to throw that out there. And I don't embrace the idea of mistreating anybody. I think that I want to make this really, really clear, that Christ followers have no reason ever to be disrespectful and to mistreat any individual, everyone, whether Muslim, whether even homosexual, whether whatever, wherever they are on the social, religious ethnic spectrum, we all are created in the image of God, and we all have value and worth as human beings. And so looking at individuals through the lens of Scripture, we know that everyone is loved by God dearly, deeply, and Christ died for all of humanity. But there are differences, especially in our religions. And I think that one thing, it's really important. That's why it's really important for me as I started this discussion on immigration and looking at Muslims, because people have these fears, man. And here's an annoyance. This isn't a fear. This is just an annoyance for me that, we have so much waste in government already. And so because we don't have proper assimilation, like you talk about, think about the different languages that governmental documents are printed in. You hear this whole cry, they should speak English. It's America. They should be speaking American. But I'm not talking necessarily about that. But the idea that there's such a lack of assimilation that our government has to reproduce a single document in multiple different languages to accommodate citizenry that isn't assimilated. That's wrong, and that's wasteful. And I think financially it's not being a good steward of the tax dollars that we have. And so I hate that. I hate that kind of what I would see and perceive as waste.
I spent 3 years in Germany, and Germany did not bend over backwards to accommodate me on my English language. I was expected to try to learn it as much as I can. And here's the ironic thing. Everybody in Germany learns how to speak English in grade school. And most of them are actually pretty fluent about it. But if I didn't make some sort of attempt to assimilate because I was there in their country, they weren't going to bend over backwards to assist me. The majority of them won't. Listen,
I don't blame them. I believe that it's wrong to impose this idea that everybody has to speak English. But I think that there should be a limit, a base standard of being able to communicate.
There's a difference between imposing and recognizing that it is good for the country and actually good for community in the long run to have a common language.
Yes.
And encouraging people. There's a difference between forcing assimilation, where you say basically you have to be like this and you cannot be like that, and encouraging people to assimilate to a degree.
And that's a great point. I mean, even the New Testament was not written in Hebrew. It was written in Greek, Koine Greek, the common language of that area and all of the world at that time. Most everybody had a basic understanding of the common Greek language, and that's how people were able to communicate across ethnic differences. This is not a kind of one and done kind of show. We're going to talk about this issue again. It will come up. And it's a challenging topic, the issue of Islam, the issue of immigration, and the perceptions and misperceptions and all of the things that exist out there. I think that it's important for a Christian to have a good understanding. I don't think that we all need to have a uniform opinion on this. That it all needs to be the same. Good people can disagree on this topic, i.e. Ian and myself. But I do believe that we need to be able to have a dialogue. This isn't inflammatory to talk about. We're just talking, and we're discussing this. There's challenges, there's misplaced fears. All of that is wrapped up into this. This is something that is an important topic for us as believers in Christ Jesus. I'm looking forward to talking to you more tomorrow. We'll see you then.